master key clicked in my door at 8:15 p.m. I expected a frantic HOA Karen, desperate to intimidate me into silence. I did not expect to find my son standing there, but not as my son. In full police uniform, badge gleaming, his voice dropped to a tone I'd never heard. "Mrs. Foster," he said. The color drained from her face. She stumbled back, and our quiet retirement community shattered forever. How did a retired IT director and his grandson end up in a standoff with an HOA chair and a police officer? It started with a question she never should have asked. Let me set the scene for you folks. I'm Wesley Armstrong, recently retired IT director, finally enjoying the quiet life in Maplewood Estates. Beautiful community, manicured lawns, the kind of place where the biggest drama should be someone's mailbox being the wrong shade of beige. My daughter Jane got deployed overseas with the Army. 9 months in some godforsaken desert. So I'm taking care of my grandson, Tyler. Kid's 13, smarter than most adults I know. And honestly, having him around made retirement feel less like waiting to die and more like, well, like I still had purpose. My son Jake visits regularly, always in civilian clothes because of some department policy about off-duty uniforms. Normal family stuff, you know, nothing that should attract the attention of criminals. But apparently normal doesn't exist when you live next to Chloe Foster. Chloe was our HOA chair, having been for about 8 years at that point. A professional-look woman in her mid-50s, always carried herself like she owned the place, which in a way she did. Chairs wield ridiculous power in these communities. The woman could find you $50 for having your trash can visible from the street on the wrong day. But here's the thing that should have been my first red flag. During our welcome to the neighborhood chat, she showed way too much interest in my home office setup. I mentioned I was retired from it, thinking it was harmless small talk. Next thing I know, she's asking about my crypto portfolio with this weird intensity. Now, I never told her I had cryptocurrency. Never mentioned digital investments, hardware, wallets, or anything. So, how the hell did she know? At the time, I just figured maybe Jake mentioned something or she overheard a phone conversation. People talk, right? But how did she know? I never told her. That was the first red flag, but I was about to discover it was just the thread that would unravel a conspiracy targeting our entire street. The whole master key situation was something I didn't understand initially, but it makes perfect sense now that I've seen how these criminals operate. See, Maplewood Estates HOA legitimately manages contractor access for all maintenance, landscaping, and emergency repairs. Standard stuff for planned communities. As chair, Chloe coordinated all contractor visits, held the master key set for legitimate business purposes. Normal procedure would be issuing keys for specific jobs, then collecting them when work was completed. But what nobody knew was that Chloe had been making copies of every key before returning the originals. Years of accumulated access to every house in the neighborhood, all perfectly legal until she started using them for illegal purposes. A smart system for someone planning systematic theft operations. Diabolical system for someone desperate enough to sell out her neighbors. The wellness checks started in week 2. Chloe would show up with some excuse about HOA maintenance schedules, but her eyes were always scanning my house. She'd ask questions like, "Do you feel safe leaving Tyler alone when you run errands?" And "Have you considered upgrading your security system?" Innocent enough questions, except for the way she said them, like she was taking notes, like she was cataloging our vulnerabilities. Tyler noticed it too. Kids have sharp eyes, probably sharper than mine these days. He started making jokes about the crazy hoe lady who asks too many questions. We laughed about it then. I wish I'd paid more attention to his instincts. Sometimes kids see things adults miss because they haven't learned to dismiss their gut feelings yet. That's a lesson I learned the hard way. By week 3, things got weird. Really weird. Tyler came to me one morning confused and a little spooked. "Grandpa," he said, "why does my laptop move when we're out?" At first, I thought he was imagining things. 13-year-old boys aren't exactly known for keeping their rooms organized. But then I started noticing it too. Coffee mug on the wrong coaster. Paper shuffled on my desk. Small things. Insignificant things. Things that meant someone had been in our house. That's when the fear set in. Not for me, but for him. My daughter trusted me to keep her son safe, and someone was violating that sanctuary. The timing was what really got me. These little changes only happened during the announced HOA maintenance windows that Chloe posted in the community newsletter. Convenient, right? Too convenient. I'm an IT guy. Well, I was an IT guy. And pattern recognition is literally how I made my living for 40 years. This wasn't random. This was systematic. That's when I talked to Emma Collins. Emma lived 3 houses down, a single mom, former military spouse herself, tough lady who understood what deployment families went through. When I mentioned the weird wellness checks and Chloe's intense questions, Emma's face went dark. Wesley, she said, Chloe did a wellness check on me last month. Said she was concerned about single parents in the community. The next day, my laptop disappeared, filed a police report. But what proof did I have? My blood went cold. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't even a simple burglary. Someone was using legitimate HOA access to systematically target families. And Chloe Foster was either involved or criminally negligent about contractor oversight. Emma's military background made her security conscious in ways most civilians aren't. If she thought something was wrong, something was definitely wrong. I spent that afternoon setting up my first security camera. A basic Ring doorbell. Nothing fancy to start. Jake helped me choose the model, his cop eyes carefully avoiding Tyler's. I could see the professional calm warring with the son's fury underneath. His family was being targeted. And honestly, part of me still hoped I was being paranoid. Maybe I was just a bored retiree looking for drama where none existed. But that hope died when I reviewed the first week of footage. There it was, clear as day. A stranger with keys, professional tools, entering our property during announced landscaping maintenance. This guy moved like he belonged there, knew exactly where to go, and spent minimal time visible, professional, organized, terrifying. Tyler analyzed the footage like some kind of junior detective, pointing out details I'd missed. Grandpa, look at this. He went straight to specific windows, checked specific locks. This isn't random exploration. He's been here before. Smart kid, too smart for his own good sometimes. The gambling hints were subtle at first, but became obvious once I knew what to look for. Chloe would mention financial planning meetings that happened at weird hours, talk about investment opportunities with suspicious enthusiasm, and make phone calls in her driveway late at night. Rivers Casino was 25 minutes away, and her car started showing up there with increasing frequency, according to neighbors who worked there. I should have connected the dots sooner, but who expects their HOA chair to be funding criminal operations through gambling addiction? The woman presented herself as the picture of suburban respectability, all while drowning in debt and looking for increasingly desperate solutions. That's what makes gambling addiction so dangerous. It turns normal people into criminals through incremental compromises that seem reasonable until suddenly you're selling out your neighbors to loan sharks. The final straw came when I checked my home office safe. I'm paranoid about digital security. It comes with the IT territory. So I kept my crypto hardware wallets in a fireproof safe, a combination known only to me. Or so I thought. When I opened it that evening, the primary hardware wallet was gone. Not the backup drives, not the cash, not even the expensive equipment sitting right next to it. Just the one device that contained access to $50,000 in cryptocurrency. Whoever took it knew exactly what they were looking for and exactly where to find it. But here's the thing that still gives me chills. Only 3 people knew I had crypto stored in that safe. Me, Jake, and somehow Chloe Foster because she'd mentioned my nice crypto portfolio during that first conversation. Remember the conversation where I never told her about any investments? Tyler found Wesley's crypto wallet hardware missing from the home office safe, and Chloe was the only person who knew the exact location. How did she get the safe combination? The next morning, I did what any former IT director would do when facing systematic security breaches. I built a comprehensive case file, referenced timestamps from the Ring camera with HOA maintenance schedules, mapped out patterns, and treated this like the corporate investigation it had become. And folks, let me tell you, the patterns were absolutely terrifying. For houses were hit in just 2 months during legitimate contractor access windows that Chloe had announced in advance through official HOA communications. This wasn't an opportunistic crime. This was a coordinated operation using insider information and professional execution. The more I analyzed the data, the more obvious it became that we were dealing with people who understood security systems, timing patterns, and neighborhood vulnerabilities better than most law enforcement agencies. Emma's contribution to our investigation changed everything we thought we understood about the scope of this operation. Her Militera security system had captured footage that made my basic Ring camera look like a children's toy. Professional equipment, multiple angles, motion tracking the works. Former military spouses don't mess around when it comes to protecting their families. "Wesley, you need to see this," she said, pulling up footage from 3 different houses over the past month. Same crew, same professional equipment, same systematic approach to bypassing security measures. These weren't random burglars stumbling around looking for easy targets. These people had been studying our neighborhood like it was their full-time job, cataloging every weakness, mapping every opportunity. But Emma's discovery that afternoon made my missing crypto wallet look like small potatoes. She called me, voice shaking with rage and terror, fresh off the phone with her bank's fraud department. "Wesley, someone opened 3 new accounts in my name. Credit cards, checking accounts, and even applied for a small business loan using addresses from houses in our neighborhood, houses that have been hit by the maintenance crew. Identity theft on an industrial scale. We thought we were dealing with a thief. We had no idea the real game was far more sinister, and the next victim would reveal the terrifying truth." What did Emma discover? These criminals weren't just stealing property. They were stealing entire lives using the access Chloe provided to Fee to photograph documents, copy personal information, and build complete financial profiles for systematic fraud. Emma's laptop hadn't just been stolen for resale value. It had been mined for every piece of personal data she'd ever stored on it. The timeline acceleration became obvious once we started comparing notes with other neighbors. What I'd initially thought was a 3-month operation had actually been compressed into just 8 weeks of intensive activity. Professional crews work fast when they have good intelligence and reliable access. They can hit multiple targets efficiently, extract maximum value, then disappear before anyone connects the dots. The scary part wasn't just their speed. It was their knowledge. These people knew which houses had valuable electronics, which families traveled regularly, and which security systems were legitimate versus decorative. Someone had been providing detailed intelligence about every potential target in Maplewood Estates. Jake's involvement had to remain unofficial at this stage, but cops have resources that retired IT directors don't. "Dad, this fits organized crime patterns I've seen in neighboring counties," he told me during one of his casual visits. Professional crews, inside information, systematic targeting across multiple communities. You're not dealing with neighborhood punks. These people are part of something bigger. His access to police databases revealed similar operations using HOA access methods in 3 other suburban communities within 50M. Same MO, same professional execution, same systematic approach to identity theft and financial fraud. We weren't just dealing with local criminals. We were looking at interstate organized crime. The confident HOA chair was crumbling. I'd hear her through the window, late at night, voice shaking on the phone. "I'm getting the money. The tech guy's place is worth 50 grand. Just don't hurt my family." The pieces finally snapped into place. This wasn't just theft. It was a desperate woman funding a gambling debt to dangerous people. That's what makes gambling addiction so dangerous. It turns normal people into criminals through incremental compromises that seem reasonable until suddenly you're selling out your neighbors to loan sharks. The final straw came when I checked my home office safe. I'm paranoid about digital security. It comes with the IT territory. So I kept my crypto hardware wallets in a fireproof safe, a combination known only to me. Or so I thought. When I opened it that evening, the primary hardware wallet was gone. Not the backup drives, not the cash, not even the expensive equipment sitting right next to it. Just the one device that contained access to $50,000 in cryptocurrency. Whoever took it knew exactly what they were looking for and exactly where to find it. But here's the thing that still gives me chills. Only 3 people knew I had crypto stored in that safe. Me, Jake, and somehow Chloe Foster because she'd mentioned my nice crypto portfolio during that first conversation. Remember the conversation where I never told her about any investments? Tyler found Wesley's crypto wallet hardware missing from the home office safe, and Chloe was the only person who knew the exact location. How did she get the safe combination? The next morning, I did what any former IT director would do when facing systematic security breaches. I built a comprehensive case file, referenced timestamps from the Ring camera with HOA maintenance schedules, mapped out patterns, and treated this like the corporate investigation it had become. And folks, let me tell you, the patterns were absolutely terrifying. For houses were hit in just 2 months during legitimate contractor access windows that Chloe had announced in advance through official HOA communications. This wasn't an opportunistic crime. This was a coordinated operation using insider information and professional execution. The more I analyzed the data, the more obvious it became that we were dealing with people who understood security systems, timing patterns, and neighborhood vulnerabilities better than most law enforcement agencies. Emma's contribution to our investigation changed everything we thought we understood about the scope of this operation. Her Militera security system had captured footage that made my basic Ring camera look like a children's toy. Professional equipment, multiple angles, motion tracking the works. Former military spouses don't mess around when it comes to protecting their families. Wesley, you need to see this, she said, pulling up footage from 3 different houses over the past month. Same crew, same professional equipment, same systematic approach to bypassing security measures. These weren't random burglars stumbling around looking for easy targets. These people had been studying our neighborhood like it was their full-time job, cataloging every weakness, mapping every opportunity. But Emma's discovery that afternoon made my missing crypto wallet look like small potatoes. She called me, voice shaking with rage and terror, fresh off the phone with her bank's fraud department. Wesley, someone opened 3 new accounts in my name. Credit cards, checking accounts, and even applied for a small business loan using addresses from houses in our neighborhood, houses that have been hit by the maintenance crew. Identity theft on an industrial scale. We thought we were dealing with a thief. We had no idea the real game was far more sinister, and the next victim would reveal the terrifying truth. What did Emma discover? These criminals weren't just stealing property. They were stealing entire lives using the access Chloe provided to Fee to photograph documents, copy personal information, and build complete financial profiles for systematic fraud. Emma's laptop hadn't just been stolen for resale value. It had been mined for every piece of personal data she'd ever stored on it. The timeline acceleration became obvious once we started comparing notes with other neighbors. What I'd initially thought was a 3-month operation had actually been compressed into just 8 weeks of intensive activity. Professional crews work fast when they have good intelligence and reliable access. They can hit multiple targets efficiently, extract maximum value, then disappear before anyone connects the dots. The scary part wasn't just their speed. It was their knowledge. These people knew which houses had valuable electronics, which families traveled regularly, and which security systems were legitimate versus decorative. Someone had been providing detailed intelligence about every potential target in Maplewood Estates. Jake's involvement had to remain unofficial at this stage, but cops have resources that retired IT directors don't. Dad, this fits organized crime patterns I've seen in neighboring counties, he told me during one of his casual visits. Professional crews, inside information, systematic targeting across multiple communities. You're not dealing with neighborhood punks. These people are part of something bigger. His access to police databases revealed similar operations using HOA access methods in 3 other suburban communities within 50M. Same MO, same professional execution, same systematic approach to identity theft and financial fraud. We weren't just dealing with local criminals. We were looking at interstate organized crime. The confident HOA chair was crumbling. I'd hear her through the window, late at night, voice shaking on the phone. I'm getting the money. The tech guy's place is worth 50 grand. Just don't hurt my family. The pieces finally snapped into place. This wasn't just theft. It was a desperate woman funding a gambling debt to dangerous people. The final straw came when I checked my home office safe. I'm paranoid about digital security. It comes with the IT territory. So I kept my crypto hardware wallets in a fireproof safe. A combination known only to me. Or so I thought. When I opened it that evening, the primary hardware wallet was gone. Not the backup drives, not the cash, not even the expensive equipment sitting right next to it. Just the one device that contained access to $50,000 in cryptocurrency. Whoever took it knew exactly what they were looking for and exactly where to find it. But here's the thing that still gives me chills. Only 3 people knew I had crypto stored in that safe. Me, Jake, and somehow Chloe Foster because she'd mentioned my nice crypto portfolio during that first conversation. Remember the conversation where I never told her about any investments? Tyler found Wesley's crypto wallet hardware missing from the home office safe, and Chloe was the only person who knew the exact location. How did she get the safe combination? The next morning, I did what any former IT director would do when facing systematic security breaches. I built a comprehensive case file, referenced timestamps from the Ring camera with HOA maintenance schedules, mapped out patterns, and treated this like the corporate investigation it had become. And folks, let me tell you, the patterns were absolutely terrifying. For houses were hit in just 2 months during legitimate contractor access windows that Chloe had announced in advance through official HOA communications. This wasn't an opportunistic crime. This was a coordinated operation using insider information and professional execution. The more I analyzed the data, the more obvious it became that we were dealing with people who understood security systems, timing patterns, and neighborhood vulnerabilities better than most law enforcement agencies. Emma's contribution to our investigation changed everything we thought we understood about the scope of this operation. Her Militera security system had captured footage that made my basic Ring camera look like a children's toy. Professional equipment, multiple angles, motion tracking the works. Former military spouses don't mess around when it comes to protecting their families. Wesley, you need to see this, she said, pulling up footage from 3 different houses over the past month. Same crew, same professional equipment, same systematic approach to bypassing security measures. These weren't random burglars stumbling around looking for easy targets. These people had been studying our neighborhood like it was their full-time job, cataloging every weakness, mapping every opportunity. But Emma's discovery that afternoon made my missing crypto wallet look like small potatoes. She called me, voice shaking with rage and terror, fresh off the phone with her bank's fraud department. Wesley, someone opened 3 new accounts in my name. Credit cards, checking accounts, and even applied for a small business loan using addresses from houses in our neighborhood, houses that have been hit by the maintenance crew. Identity theft on an industrial scale. These criminals weren't just stealing property. They were stealing entire lives using the access Chloe provided to Fee to photograph documents, copy personal information, and build complete financial profiles for systematic fraud. Emma's laptop hadn't just been stolen for resale value. It had been mined for every piece of personal data she'd ever stored on it. The timeline acceleration became obvious once we started comparing notes with other neighbors. What I'd initially thought was a 3-month operation had actually been compressed into just 8 weeks of intensive activity. Professional crews work fast when they have good intelligence and reliable access. They can hit multiple targets efficiently, extract maximum value, then disappear before anyone connects the dots. The scary part wasn't just their speed. It was their knowledge. These people knew which houses had valuable electronics, which families traveled regularly, and which security systems were legitimate versus decorative. Someone had been providing detailed intelligence about every potential target in Maplewood Estates. Jake's involvement had to remain unofficial at this stage, but cops have resources that retired IT directors don't. Dad, this fits organized crime patterns I've seen in neighboring counties, he told me during one of his casual visits. Professional crews, inside information, systematic targeting across multiple communities. You're not dealing with neighborhood punks. These people are part of something bigger. His access to police databases revealed similar operations using HOA access methods in 3 other suburban communities within 50 m. Same MO, same professional execution, same systematic approach to identity theft and financial fraud. We weren't just dealing with local criminals. We were looking at interstate organized crime. Chloe's behavior during this period should have won her an Oscar for worst performance under pressure. The confident HOA chair who'd been terrorizing neighbors over mailbox colors and lawn heights was clearly crumbling under massive stress. Late-night phone calls she'd taken her driveway, chain-smoking cigarettes like her life depended on it, hands visibly shaking during community meetings. I caught fragments of those conversations when walking past her house. "I'm getting the money. Just give me more time. The tech guy's place is worth 50 grand. I swear. Please don't hurt my family." The desperation in her voice was palpable, terrifying, and completely at odds with her public persona as a community leader. The loan shark connection became obvious when Big Eddie Castellano's intimidation tactics escalated beyond phone calls. Black SUV parked outside Chloe's house at all hours. Strangers walking slowly past her property. Professional surveillance that made our amateur efforts look pathetic. One evening, I watched through Emma's telephoto lens as a man built like a professional wrestler had what appeared to be a very calm, very terrifying conversation with Chloe on her front porch. 10% weekly, Chloe. You signed the contract. His voice carried clearly across the quiet street. My patience has limits. Tank handles collections when I'm disappointed. The threat was delivered with a kind of professional calm that's more frightening than screaming rage. This was Big Eddie's operation, and Chloe was just another debtor who'd gotten in over her head. The personal targeting of my family became clear when Tyler brought me intelligence that made my blood run cold. Kit had been tracking social media posts, neighborhood communications, even delivery schedules. Anything that might reveal how criminals were gathering information about potential targets. "Grandpa, they know way too much about our routines," he said, showing me compiled evidence on his laptop. "When you grocery shop, when I have soccer practice, when Jake visits, even when Mom calls from overseas, someone's been watching us for weeks, cataloging everything we do." Professional surveillance by people who understood that successful heists require comprehensive intelligence gathering. We weren't random victims. We were carefully selected targets whose routines had been studied, weaknesses identified, and an extraction plan developed. Emma discovers her identity has been used to open 3 new bank accounts she never created, all with addresses matching houses that were recently maintained by HOA contractors. Who has enough personal information to steal identities so systematically? Tuesday afternoon started normal enough. Tyler should have been home from school by 3:30, the usual routine we'd followed for months without incident. 4 o'clock came and went with no sign of my grandson. 4:30 brought that sick feeling in my stomach that every parent or grandparent recognizes something's wrong. 5 o'clock had me pacing the house like a caged animal, calling his cell phone every 10 minutes, getting voicemail every single time. By 5:15, I was ready to call Jake and mobilize half the police department when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Grandfather should mind his own business. Some families need to learn when to stop asking questions. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone steady enough to read it twice. Jake's response to that threatening message was swift and professional, but I could hear the cold fury underneath his cop voice. "Dad, I'm calling this officially. This just became a kidnapping investigation, and department resources are now fully committed to finding Tyler and identifying whoever sent that threat." Within 30 minutes, the Maplewood Police Department had patrol units canvassing the neighborhood, detectives interviewing Tyler's classmates, and federal agencies being notified about potential interstate criminal activity. The efficiency was impressive and terrifying. Impressive because it showed how seriously law enforcement takes threats against children. Terrifying because it confirmed that my worst fears about organized criminal involvement were probably correct. Professional criminals don't threaten kids unless they're desperate or completely confident in their ability to avoid consequences. Emma organized civilian search efforts with military precision, coordinating neighbors into systematic grid patterns, assigning specific areas and timeframes, and maintaining communication protocols that would make generals proud. Former military spouses understand crisis management in ways that civilian families never learn. They stay calm under pressure, think strategically about resource allocation, and execute plans without wasting time on panic or blame. Wesley will find him, she told me with absolute conviction. Tyler's smart. He knows the neighborhood, and he's got good instincts. If he's hiding, he picks somewhere safe. If someone took him, they left evidence. Either way, we'll get him back. Her confidence was infectious and probably the only thing keeping me from completely losing my mind. The call came at 7:15, just as the sun was setting, and my imagination was conjuring increasingly horrific scenarios. Tyler's voice scared, but trying to sound brave. "Grandpa, I'm okay. I'm at the public library on Maple Street. I heard them talking about Big Eddie and collections, and I got scared and hid. I've been researching Chloe's financial records on the public computers here. You need to see what I found." Relief flooded through me so fast I nearly collapsed right there in my kitchen. My grandson was safe, had been productive during his disappearance, and had apparently gathered intelligence that might break this case wide open. The kid's instincts had been perfect. When professional criminals start making threats, smart people find secure locations and start gathering evidence. Tyler's library adventure revealed investigative skills that impressed even Jake's detective colleagues. Using public computers to avoid leaving digital traces on our home network, he accessed county records, property databases, and financial disclosure documents that painted a comprehensive picture of Chloe's financial desperation. "Grandpa, her house has been refinanced 3 times this year," he explained, showing me printed documents. "She's borrowed against everything she owns, maxed out credit lines, and even took cash advances on store credit cards. This woman is drowning in debt and running out of legal options to stay afloat." The timeline matched perfectly with the escalation of criminal activity in our neighborhood. Desperate people make increasingly dangerous choices when their backs are against the wall. But Tyler's evasion tactics during his library hiding had revealed something even more disturbing about the scope of the threat we were facing. Tankstone and his crew had spent hours systematically searching the neighborhood for a 13-year-old boy, driving slowly through streets, checking parks and playgrounds, even questioning other kids about Tyler's possible whereabouts. Professional kidnappers don't give up easily when they're trying to send a message to interfering families. Tyler had managed to avoid them by using the library's back exit when they checked the front entrance, staying mobile between floors, even hiding in bathroom stalls when suspicious vehicles cruised the parking lot. Smart kid with good survival instincts, but the fact that he needed those skills at age 13 was absolutely infuriating. Chloe's desperation had reached critical mass by Saturday evening, with Big Eddie's final deadline approaching and no viable solutions remaining. The gambling debt that started as $5,000 6 months ago had metastasized through missed payments and compound interest into $13,000 plus collection fees. Money that a retired HOA chair simply couldn't access through legitimate means. Tankstone and his crew were positioned for their biggest score yet, with my cryptocurrency and equipment representing enough value to clear Chloe's debt and generate profit for Eddie's operation. All she had to do was provide access, maintain lookout services during the heist, and live with the knowledge that she betrayed neighbors who'd trusted her with community leadership. Simple transaction for everyone except the victims whose lives would be destroyed. Saturday night arrived with an atmosphere of impending confrontation that had the entire neighborhood on edge. Tyler was safely home, but visibly shaken by his afternoon adventure. I was angry enough to bite through steel rebar, and somewhere in the shadows, professional criminals were finalizing plans to rob us blind while we slept. Chloe had been calling and texting all day, trying to arrange some kind of private meeting, claiming she needed to clear the air about misunderstandings and discuss community safety concerns. Right. The only misunderstanding was her thinking she could threaten my family without facing consequences. The only safety concern was the criminal organization she'd invited into our neighborhood. By 8 p.m., I'd had enough of her manipulation and lies. The aggressive pounding on my front door started exactly at 8:15, loud enough to rattle windows and wake neighbors 3 houses away. "Wesley, open this door. We need to talk about your interference and the problems you're causing for everyone." Chloe's voice carried the kind of desperate rage that makes people dangerous. Cornered animals lash out unpredictably, and she was definitely cornered. Tyler had just finished unpacking his emergency backpack when the door assault began, still processing his afternoon encounter with professional criminals. "Grandpa, should we call the police?" he asked, not realizing that the police were already much more involved than he understood. "No, Tyler, stay back. I'll handle this," I told him, moving toward the door with more confidence than I actually felt. 65 years old, former IT director, facing down whatever remained of Chloe Foster's sanity and desperation. But as I reached for the deadbolt, familiar footsteps approached from behind me. Heavy, confident steps that I recognized immediately. Jake had arrived for what Chloe thought would be a private confrontation between neighbors. Except tonight, he wasn't wearing his usual civilian clothes. The transformation was remarkable. My son had gone from a casual family visitor to a full law enforcement authority figure, complete with a badge, utility belt, radio, and the kind of presence that makes criminals reconsider their life choices. Chloe expected to intimidate a scared old man and his teenage grandson. Instead, she was about to meet Officer Jake Armstrong of the Maplewood Police Department and discover that threatening police families carries consequences she'd never imagined. The door opened in time seemed to freeze everyone involved. There stood Jake in his complete uniform, badge gleaming under the porch light, duty belt loaded with professional equipment, radio crackling with dispatcher communications. Every inch the authority figure that Chloe had been unknowingly challenging for weeks. The transformation on her face was instantaneous and absolutely devastating. Color drained from her cheeks like someone had pulled a plug. Her mouth fell open in shock, and she literally stumbled backward off our front step onto the walkway. "Mrs. Foster," Jake said in his most professional voice, the tone he reserved for serious criminal suspects. "Officer Jake Armstrong, Maplewood Police Department, I believe you wanted to discuss something." The woman who had been terrorizing our neighborhood with fake authority suddenly found herself face to face with real authority, and she looked like she was about to faint. The neighbors started emerging from their houses like prairie dogs popping up from burrows, drawn by the commotion and probably hoping for entertainment that would give them something to talk about for months. Mrs. Patterson from across the street had her cell phone out recording everything for posterity and probably social media. The teenager next door was openly staring from his bedroom window, probably posting live updates to his friends. Even Emma appeared on her front porch, arms crossed, watching Chloe's world collapse in real time with the satisfied expression of someone finally seeing justice served. The audience made Chloe's humiliation complete. Not only was she busted by law enforcement, but the entire community was witnessing her exposure as a fraud and criminal collaborator. I didn't know you were a police officer," Chloe stammered, trying desperately to recover some dignity from the situation. "This is just a neighbor dispute. Community issues. HOA business that got blown out of proportion." The excuses sounded pathetic even to her, but she kept talking, probably hoping that words could somehow undo the reality of facing a criminal investigation. Jake's expression never changed. Professional, calm, absolutely terrifying to someone with Chloe's secrets. "We'll be investigating recent break-ins thoroughly, Mrs. Foster. I suggest you think carefully about anything you might want to tell us, voluntarily before we discover it through other means." The threat was clear, professional, and carried the weight of someone who had seen enough criminal investigations to know how they typically end. But Jake wasn't finished with revelations that would destroy whatever remained of Chloe's composure. While she stood there looking like a deer caught in headlights, my son was running her information through police databases via his mobile terminal. Jake's expression turned to ice. "Mrs. Foster, or should I say Mrs. Johnson from Nevada? Or Miss Santos from Arizona? 5 identities. 3 states." The question wasn't just what she had done, but who she really was and what she was running from. When you saw that uniform reveal moment, did you get chills like I did? Tell me in the comments what you would have said to Chloe right then. The revelation about Chloe's 5 different identities sent shockwaves through our investigation, but it also accelerated everything into official police channels at lightning speed. Jake filed comprehensive reports that night, bringing federal agencies into the loop while maintaining strict evidence protocols that would hold up in court. No more amateur neighborhood surveillance. This was interstate organized crime with implications that stretched far beyond Maplewood Estates. The woman we'd known as Chloe Foster was actually Christine Johnson from Nevada fleeing gambling debts. Maria Santos from Arizona running from loan shark violence, and 3 other identities we were still discovering, each representing a life destroyed by addiction and increasingly desperate choices. Professional identity theft isn't something you stumble into accidentally. It's something you learn through years of running from consequences that never stop chasing you. What terrified me most wasn't Chloe's criminal history, but the level of sophistication her current operation displayed. Big Eddie Castellano's crew wasn't just monitoring our neighborhood. They'd been conducting comprehensive surveillance of law enforcement response patterns, studying police radio frequencies, tracking emergency service protocols across the entire county. Professional criminals don't take chances with police officers, even when they don't initially know they're targeting one. They watch everyone, catalog everything, and prepare for contingencies that normal people never consider. Tank Stone and his crew had probably been observing Jake's patrol schedule for weeks, noting which routes he took home, where he parked his personal vehicle, and even which coffee shops he frequented during breaks. The thought that my son had been under professional surveillance without any of us realizing it was absolutely chilling. But the most disturbing discovery came when Jake's colleagues analyzed the crew's technical capabilities. These people weren't just thieves with good information. They had sophisticated equipment for monitoring police communications, tracking law enforcement response times, and even intercepting cellular communications in real time. Dad, these guys have military signal intelligence gear, Jake explained during one of our increasingly frequent strategy sessions. Someone in their organization has serious technical training, probably former military or law enforcement themselves. They're not just avoiding cops. They're actively monitoring cop movements and communications. The implications were staggering. Every conversation we'd had about security measures, every plan we'd discussed for protecting Tyler, every tactical decision we'd made, all potentially compromised by people who understood surveillance better than most government agencies. The cryptocurrency intelligence gathering had been thorough enough to impress even federal investigators. Tink's crew had researched my entire 40-year career in corporate IT, traced every retirement investment, and identified digital assets worth exactly $50,000 plus $20,000 in related hardware equipment. They knew about my backup storage methods, understood my security protocols, and even recognized the specific models of hardware wallets I used for different types of cryptocurrency. This wasn't random burglary targeting visible wealth. This was precision extraction by people who understood digital assets better than most financial institutions. Someone in their organization had serious technical expertise, probably a hacker or former cybersecurity professional who'd turned their skills toward criminal enterprise. Sunday morning brought intelligence that fundamentally changed our defensive strategy and confirmed our worst fears about the scope of the threat. And this military-grade surveillance system had captured something that made federal investigators immediately escalate the case to their highest priority levels. Tink's crew wasn't just planning a heist. They were planning a heist specifically designed to neutralize law enforcement response through technical countermeasures, professional signal jammers to disrupt communications, police scanner equipment to monitor emergency frequencies, even portable cell tower simulators to intercept and redirect cellular communications. These people intended to create a communication dead zone around our house during the robbery, ensuring that calls for help would never reach emergency services. My counter strategy had to evolve rapidly to match the sophistication of the threat we were facing. Simple home security systems wouldn't work against people with military-grade electronic warfare capabilities. So I went old school, combining modern digital surveillance with analog backup systems that couldn't be jammed or intercepted. Hidden cameras with local storage that didn't rely on wireless communications. Silent alarms connected through hardwired landlines that bypassed cellular networks entirely. Even physical evidence collection systems that would continue gathering intelligence regardless of electronic countermeasures. If Tank's crew wanted to rob a former IT director's house, they'd discover that 40 years in corporate security had taught me contingency planning that most criminals never anticipate. Tyler's role in our defense strategy was carefully limited, but absolutely crucial to our success. The kid desperately wanted to play hero, wanted to confront the bad guys and protect his family through direct action. But 13-year-old boys don't survive encounters with professional criminals, no matter how smart or brave they might be. So, we gave him the technical support role, monitoring camera feeds from a secure location, maintaining communications through backup channels, coordinating with law enforcement through protocols that couldn't be intercepted. His job was to be smart, safe, and precise with evidence gathering. Not the dramatic role he wanted, but the role our family needed him to fulfill if we were going to survive this confrontation intact. The psychological pressure on Chloe during this period was visible from space and increasingly dangerous for everyone involved. The woman was caught between Big Eddie's violent deadline and Jake's federal investigation, between organized crime conspiracy charges and whatever original threats had forced her to start changing identities years ago. Saturday afternoon, I watched her pace her driveway for hours, making frantic phone calls, chain-smoking cigarettes, exhibiting every sign of someone approaching a complete psychological breakdown. She tried calling me multiple times, probably desperate to negotiate some kind of deal that would save her from both criminal prosecution and loan shark violence, but I wasn't interested in hearing excuses or justifications. The time for explanations had ended when they threatened my grandson. Tank's final coordination meeting with Chloe happened in broad daylight, right in her driveway, with the kind of confidence that suggested they believed their operation was unstoppable. Through endless telephoto surveillance lens, we watched him deliver final instructions, saw her nod with the defeated resignation of someone who had lost all hope of escape. The conversation lasted less than 5 minutes, but the body language told the complete story. Tank was in complete control. Chloe was terrified, but compliant. And tomorrow night would determine whether my family survived their criminal enterprise. Whatever hold Big Eddie's organization had over her was stronger than her fear of federal prison, stronger than her terror of Jake's investigation, stronger than any remaining trace of conscience about betraying neighbors who'd trusted her. Sunday's heist preparation began before dawn with reconnaissance that demonstrated professional military-style planning. Tank's crew arrived using legitimate contractor vehicles and Chloe's master key access to conduct final intelligence gathering on our property. They verified camera positions, tested electronic countermeasures, confirmed escape routes, and eliminated variables that could compromise their operation. These weren't street-level thieves hoping for lucky breaks. They were experienced professionals with systematic approaches to criminal enterprise. But they'd made one critical assumption error in their planning process. They assumed that a 65-year-old retired IT director and his teenage grandson would be soft targets who'd panic under pressure. They had no idea that some families fight back harder when cornered. And that corporate security experience translates surprisingly well to defending against organized crime. The evening hours brought final preparations that felt like getting ready for war. Jake positioned backup units throughout the neighborhood, coordinating with federal agents who'd been monitoring the situation since the interstate identity theft connections were discovered. Emma's house became our secondary command center with sight lines covering approaches that our own cameras couldn't monitor. Tyler was stationed in Jake's old bedroom, surrounded by monitors and communication equipment that would keep him connected to law enforcement regardless of electronic warfare attempts. Everything was ready. The trap was set. The only question remaining was whether Tank's crew would walk into it or whether they'd detect our preparations and either abort the operation or escalate to violence that none of us were prepared to handle. By Sunday evening, the atmosphere in our house felt like the calm before a hurricane. Tyler was scared but focused, understanding that his role was crucial to gathering evidence that would put these criminals away permanently. I was angry and determined, ready to protect my family through whatever means necessary. Jake was coordinating law enforcement response while maintaining the professional distance required for legal prosecution. And somewhere in the darkness outside, professional criminals were making final preparations to rob us of everything we'd worked 40 years to build. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine whether justice or criminal enterprise would prevail in Maplewood Estates. Wesley discovers Tank's crew has been monitoring police radio frequencies and knows exactly when Jake's shift ends, which routes he takes home, and where he parks his personal car. They have been watching the Watcher, but for how long? Sunday night arrived with the kind of electric tension that makes your skin crawl and your nerves sing with anticipation. 11:30 p.m. brought the sound every homeowner dreads. The subtle click of professional lock manipulation, followed by the almost inaudible whisper of our rear door opening. Tankstone led his crew with military precision that would have impressed generals, moving through our house like they'd rehearsed the layout for weeks. 3 specialists with state-of-the-art equipment, signal jammers powerful enough to create communication dead zones, and extraction tools designed specifically for cryptocurrency theft. They bypassed our basic security systems exactly as predicted, located target areas with GPS-level accuracy, and worked with the calm confidence of people who'd executed dozens of similar operations without ever facing serious consequences. The professionalism was both impressive and terrifying. These weren't desperate amateurs stumbling through random break-ins. These were career criminals with systematic approaches to wealth extraction and law enforcement evasion. Tyler was positioned in our makeshift command center, surrounded by monitors displaying every camera angle we'd managed to establish over the past week of intensive preparation. The kid was scared but laser-focused, understanding that his evidence-gathering role could determine whether these criminals face justice or escape to victimize other families across multiple states. "Grandpa, they're using some kind of electronic jamming device that's blocking cell signals," he whispered into his headset. Maintaining communication through hardwired landlines that couldn't be intercepted or disrupted. Tank's heading straight for your office with professional lockpicking tools, and 2 crew members are splitting toward the basement and garage with equipment I don't recognize. They know our house layout better than most delivery drivers who've been here for years. Of course they did. Chloe had provided detailed floor plans, security system specifications, daily routine schedules, even Tyler's sleeping patterns and favorite hiding spots. She'd sold out every intimate detail about our family's vulnerabilities to save her own skin from Big Eddie's escalating violence and threats. Jake was coordinating external operations from a concealed position that allowed comprehensive surveillance of all potential escape routes while maintaining encrypted radio contact with backup units strategically positioned throughout the neighborhood. Professional police work executed with federal agency precision, not family vengeance driven by emotional responses, though I could detect carefully controlled fury in his voice every time he spoke into his radio communications. Suspects are inside a residential structure, theft in progress, with federal agents standing by for coordination. We need them to complete multiple criminal acts before moving in for arrests that will survive appeals courts and procedural challenges. The legal requirements were incredibly frustrating, but absolutely necessary for successful prosecution that would dismantle the broader criminal organization. We needed them caught red-handed with stolen property, recorded confessions that would implicate Big Eddie's entire operation, evidence chains that would survive defense attorney challenges and judicial technicalities. Justice through proper legal channels, not vigilante satisfaction that would allow dangerous criminals to escape on procedural grounds. The confrontation happened sooner than anyone had anticipated or planned. When Tank discovered Tyler's sophisticated monitoring equipment and realized the house was still occupied by people who weren't cowering in terror as expected. Professional criminals always prepare contingency plans for complications, but they strongly prefer operations that proceed according to carefully developed schedules without unexpected variables or civilian interference. "Sir, we really don't want any trouble with civilians tonight," Tank said, maintaining professional calm and reasonable tone, even while committing multiple federal felonies simultaneously. "Just let us complete our work efficiently and systematically, and absolutely nobody needs to get hurt during this process." I'll give the man credit for composure under pressure. He was remarkably collected during criminal activity, prepared for civilian resistance. Exactly what you'd expect from someone who had been running sophisticated criminal operations for years across multiple jurisdictions. But he'd made one fundamental miscalculation about the specific family he was targeting tonight. Here's how this situation actually works, I told him, genuinely surprised by how steady my voice sounded despite the massive adrenaline surges coursing through my system. You're going to explain something important before you take another single step in my house. Why specifically target my family? Why threaten my 13-year-old grandson? What made you people think that threatening an innocent child was an acceptable business strategy for professional criminals? Tank's carefully maintained professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something completely unexpected underneath the criminal indifference. Not just organizational loyalty or financial motivation, but genuine personal fear of his own criminal organization and its leadership. You honestly don't understand the actual situation here, old man. We work for people who absolutely don't accept failure, excesses, or operational complications. Your cryptocurrency assets were supposed to clear a very significant organizational debt. Now, we're all in much deeper trouble than you can possibly imagine or comprehend. That's when I realized with growing horror that Chloe wasn't the only person trapped in Big Eddie's expanding web of financial control and criminal coercion. The systematic breakdown of Tank's professional composure under interrogation pressure revealed intelligence information that federal investigators had been desperately seeking for months through conventional channels. This wasn't just localized neighborhood theft or even regional criminal activity. It was systematic financial warfare conducted across 3 states simultaneously, specifically targeting elderly retirees with substantial digital assets using HOA leadership positions as entry points for comprehensive criminal operations with sophisticated planning and execution. Big Eddie personally owns gambling debts and financial obligations from here all the way to Nevada, Tank explained while handcuffs clicked into place as Jake's backup units surrounded our house with practiced tactical precision. Casino advances, business loans, personal guarantees, mortgage refinancing. He systematically identifies people drowning in insurmountable financial problems and offers immediate solutions that inevitably become permanent financial slavery. Chloe's just one of dozens of desperate people working off accumulated debts through theft operations, identity fraud schemes, and whatever criminal activities generate sufficient revenue for the organization's expanding operations. The scope was absolutely staggering and deeply terrifying. Our peaceful suburban neighborhood had been just one small operational component of a criminal empire that stretched across multiple states and countless victims. Chloe's complete psychological breakdown and comprehensive confession came during formal arrest processing when the crushing reality of federal conspiracy charges finally shattered whatever remained of her deteriorating psychological defenses and self-justification mechanisms. The gambling addiction had started innocently enough through social casino visits, small recreational bets, and entertainment activities that gradually evolved into compulsive behavior requiring increasingly desperate funding sources and risk-taking behavior. $5,000 in advanced payments from Big Eddie's legitimate casino operation had seemed like miraculous salvation 6 months ago when her other options were exhausted. 10% weekly payment requirements had seemed completely manageable until missed deadlines started accumulating compound penalties and escalating threats against family members. I never wanted anyone hurt or traumatized, she kept repeating through uncontrollable tears and hyperventilation episodes. It was supposed to be simple and clean, targeting empty houses during family vacations, processing insurance claims, and completely victimless financial crimes that wouldn't destroy anyone's life. Victimless crimes. That particular phrase would haunt my conscience for years afterward, thinking about Emma's destroyed credit rating and Tyler's psychological trauma from criminal threats. But the most shocking and disturbing revelation about Big Eddie's extensive criminal organization came from a completely unexpected source during routine processing procedures. While Tank was being prepared for federal transport to secure detention facilities, He specifically requested a private conversation with Jake that would fundamentally change everything we thought we understood about the true scope of the criminal conspiracy we'd accidentally discovered. Officer Armstrong, your family has stumbled into something much bigger and more dangerous than simple neighborhood theft operations, Tank said, his voice carrying the kind of existential fear that makes hardened career criminals voluntarily cooperate with law enforcement agencies. Big Eddie's criminal organization includes corrupted people inside police departments, federal agencies, judicial systems, and even state government positions. The surveillance of your family started long before the cryptocurrency targeting began. You've all been systematically monitored since before your father first moved to Maplewood Estates. The implications hit Jake like a devastating physical blow. Our entire situation might have been carefully orchestrated from the very beginning through criminal infiltration of legitimate institutions. The whispered conversation between Tank and Jake lasted less than 30 seconds of hushed urgent communication, but it completely transformed my son's facial expression from professional satisfaction to genuine existential terror. 20 years of police experience, countless dangerous situations, direct exposure to every conceivable type of criminal organization. But whatever specific information Tank revealed shook Jake to his absolute core in ways I'd never witnessed before. Dad, we need to move the entire family to secure federal locations immediately, Jake told me. His voice carrying desperate urgency I'd never heard in 2 decades of knowing him as a professional law enforcement officer. Tank just provided critical information about Big Eddie's organization that fundamentally changed everything we thought we knew. This criminal operation has institutional connections we never suspected, geographic reach we never imagined, and financial resources that make our current security measures completely inadequate for family protection. What could possibly be so threatening that it would scare a veteran police officer into recommending immediate emergency family relocation to federal protection facilities? The immediate aftermath brought simultaneous feelings of victory and escalating terror that seemed completely contradictory. Tank's entire crew was arrested with overwhelming physical evidence. The systematic theft operation was completely exposed, with federal prosecutors already salivating over potential RICO charges. And Chloe's comprehensive confession provided detailed information that would systematically dismantle criminal networks across 3 states for years to come. But Tank's specific warning to Jake suggested with growing certainty that our family's troubles were just beginning rather than ending with these arrests. Federal investigators were being urgently called in not just for routine prosecution support, but for comprehensive witness protection services. Safe houses were being hastily arranged not just as reasonable precautionary measures, but as immediate operational necessities for family survival. The victory we'd achieved through careful planning had apparently triggered severe consequences that none of us had anticipated, prepared for, or even imagined possible. As federal agents efficiently coordinated our emergency relocation with military-style precision, I watched Tyler pack essential belongings with the kind of calm operational efficiency that number 13-year-old child should ever need to develop under any circumstances. My beloved grandson had been forced to grow up far too fast, learn about adult criminal dangers at far too young an age, and face sophisticated criminal threats that would permanently traumatize most emotionally healthy adults. But he was handling the intense psychological pressure with remarkable emotional maturity, clearly understanding that our family's immediate survival depended on following federal law enforcement protocols, exactly without deviation or argument. Grandpa, are we actually going to be okay after all this? He asked while systematically stuffing his laptop and essential electronics into a standard government-issued go bag. I honestly don't know for certain, Tyler, I answered with complete honesty. But we're definitely going to face whatever comes next together as a united family. During Tank's arrest, he whispers something to Jake that makes the officer's face go completely white. Later, Jake tells Wesley they need to move the family to a safe house immediately, but he won't explain why. What did Tank reveal about their operation? This ending gave me goosebumps thinking about my own family's safety. Have you ever felt like someone was watching your house? Share your experiences and let's protect each other. 3 months later, The federal justice system had delivered results that actually restored some faith in how America handles organized crime when prosecutors have solid evidence and cooperative witnesses. Tank Stone received 8 years in federal prison for racketeering and organized theft operations. His crew members got 5 to 7 years each, with sentences reduced based on their cooperation in exposing Big Eddie Castano's broader criminal empire. The coordinated federal raids across 3 states had been spectacular. 23 arrests for $1 million in seized criminal assets, dozens of victims finally getting restitution and closure. Sometimes the system actually works when you give investigators rock-solid evidence and criminals stupid enough to threaten police officers' families on recorded surveillance footage. Chloe's final accounting was more complicated, but ultimately satisfying in ways that pure revenge never could have achieved. 18 months in county jail, followed by 3 years of supervised probation, court-ordered gambling addiction treatment, and complete financial devastation from legal fees and victim restitution requirements. Her house was sold at auction to pay compensation to identity theft victims. Her reputation in any community was permanently destroyed, and her future would be spent rebuilding a life she demolished through addiction and criminal choices. Not the dramatic courtroom breakdown that makes good television, but real consequences that would follow her for decades. Sometimes justice looks like forcing someone to face the long-term damage they have caused and spend years making amends to people they've hurt. The transformation of Maplewood Estates, HOA, became a case study for community organizations nationwide, proving that transparent leadership and professional oversight can prevent criminal infiltration of suburban governance. Emma Collins emerged as the natural choice for community organizing, coordinating victim support services while leading comprehensive reforms that eliminated the vulnerabilities Chloe had exploited. New contractor verification protocols, financial transparency requirements, and security measures that actually protect residents instead of enabling systematic theft operations. The woman who had lost the most to Chloe's betrayal became the driving force behind ensuring similar crimes never happened again. That's the kind of transformation that restores faith and human resilience. Victims becoming advocates, personal pain becoming community protection. Tyler's recognition from law enforcement agencies was gratifying, but more importantly marked his genuine maturation from the experience of confronting real evil and surviving through intelligence rather than bravado. The Maplewood Police Department presented him with a civilian assistance commendation for evidence gathering that led to federal convictions. But beyond official recognition, the kid had learned lessons about courage, family loyalty, and standing up to bullies that would serve him for life. His mother, Jane, returned from military deployment to find her son more confident, more aware of real-world dangers, and proud to be part of a family story that proved ordinary people can defeat organized crime through preparation and cooperation. Military families understand sacrifice and service better than most.
She was genuinely proud of how her father and son had protected each other during her absence. Jake's career advancement from the federal investigation exceeded anything he'd expected from 20 years of professional police work. Department commendation for outstanding investigation under personal pressure, consideration for detective promotion based on his handling of interstate criminal cases, and recognition from federal agencies for maintaining professional standards while protecting his own family. But more importantly, he demonstrated that good police officers can navigate the complex relationship between personal and professional responsibilities without compromising either duty. The uniform that had terrified Chloe Foster into submission became a symbol of everything law enforcement should represent: protection of innocent people, pursuit of justice through legal means, and courage to confront organized crime, regardless of personal risk.
My own evolution from retirement boredom to community leadership happened gradually, but felt completely natural given everything we'd experienced together. The neighbors who voted me hot chair unanimously weren't just expressing gratitude for stopping criminal activity. They wanted leadership from someone who'd proven capable of handling serious problems with competence and integrity. Retirement had given me purpose again. Not through leisure activities or hobbies, but through genuine service to people who needed protection from threats they couldn't handle alone. The security consulting business that developed from our experience helped other retirement communities identify vulnerabilities and implement comprehensive protection systems. Turns out that former IT directors with corporate security backgrounds make excellent crime prevention specialists when they apply technical knowledge to community safety problems. We thought the story was over.
The convictions were in, the community was healing, but Tank's warning was a seed of dread that never left me. He wasn't just threatening us, he was telling a truth we were about to learn the hard way. 6 months after the federal convictions, I received an encrypted email from an untraceable sender that made my blood run cold and confirmed Tank's warnings about Big Eddie's long-term retaliation methods. Surveillance photographs of our family taken over the past year. Images that could only have been captured from inside our house, from angles that no external monitoring could achieve. Tyler is doing homework at the kitchen table. Jake visits in civilian clothes during family dinners. Even photographs of me sleeping in my own bedroom, completely unaware that strangers were documenting my most private moments. The message accompanying these violations was simple and absolutely terrifying. Chloe was just the beginning. We know where Jane is deployed.
Some debts transferred to family members who interfere with business operations. The fight we thought we won was just the first battle. The house in Maplewood stands empty, a monument to a life we can't return to. My daughter's deployment is now indefinite for her own safety. My grandson goes to school under a name that isn't his. Would I do it all again? To protect my family? Absolutely. Because some secrets aren't meant to stay buried.